Welcome to Social Media 101, How to Make Social Media Work for You. In today's session, I'll give you some background on social media to help you gain some perspective, and then share some tools with you that'll help you leverage the power of social media right away. So let's get started. Most of us use social media every day, but you may never think about how we got here and, more importantly, how we can use it. First, I'll share with you some trends that'll give you a little perspective on what social media is all about. Then I'll give you a working definition that'll help you leverage social for your own projects. I'll talk about the stumbling blocks that can stop your efforts and what you can do to overcome them. I'll introduce a set of best practices that'll jumpstart your designs. And finally, I'll share some thoughts on how you can be successful in the new social business world. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Marshall Dakowitz, and I'm part of the D3 team here at Infragistics. D3 is the consulting arm of Infragistics. Check out our website for more information on the cool things we do. My email is also here. There'll be time to ask questions at the end. If you have any questions after the session, please feel free to email me directly. Okay, let's get started. Well, social media is everywhere. But have you ever really thought about it, how big it really is? Is it more than just a recent fad, or is it the new way of doing everything? For example, you can use social media to find a place to eat, look for your next car, or use it to even fall in love. Next, let's look at some numbers that I think will give you some ideas of how big social media really is. Now, a study by Experian found that internet users spend more than a quarter of their time on social networking sites. When we look at 60 minutes of online activity, we find that 16 minutes are devoted entirely to social networking. This study was just looking at social networking, which is a major part of social media, but it's not all of it. All of email and parts of entertainment, shopping, adult, lifestyle, business, and other are all considered social media. Now, a 2012 survey by Pew Research found that 18 to 29-year-olds are more likely than any other age group to use social media. They found that users under 50 are also very likely to use social networking sites. Women visit social networking sites more than men, and people living in urban areas are more likely than rural folks to use social networking. Now, ComScore found that social networking sites reach 82% of the world's online population. That's about 1.2 billion users around the world. Now, finally, ComScore found in 2011 that 6.7 billion hours were spent on just social networking. But by just looking at the amount of time people spend on sites such as Facebook or LinkedIn, we can really come to grips with the power of social media. Look at the amount of time people spend online. Social networking has more than tripled over the last few years. By the end of this study, social networking was the most popular content category worldwide. That's 19% of all time spent online. So nearly 1 in every 5 minutes spent online is now spent on social networking. Next, let's take a look at some numbers from the most popular social media sites. And here are the stats I just pulled from last month's eBiz MBA report. They count and rank unique monthly visitors for these sites. Facebook, of course, has the most visitors, 700 million visitors. To put that number in perspective, Google, which is the most visited site in the world, has 900 million visitors. Take a look at the other sites. Twitter with 250 million visitors, LinkedIn with 110 million visitors. These numbers are huge. All right, so I hope I've convinced you that social media is big and is getting bigger all the time. Next, I'll give you a working definition of social media. Now, social media is the convergence of technology, the self, community, and social objects. These 4 areas come together to form an ecosystem. All four aspects must be present in sufficient quantity for the system to thrive. So let's take a look at each aspect in more detail. Technology is the system that enables people to share and network, so the software systems. The self is how we see and think of ourselves, the forces that drive how we act. People. Community is how we think of the community and how it thinks of itself. So this is relationships with people. And the last piece of the puzzle is social objects, the stuff people create and talk about. Here is where the user-generated content is, the stuff we all talk about. Now, these four areas are in a complex relationship where changes in one area change all the others. For example, let's say a new technology emerges that allows us to talk about a new type of social object, an object that no one has ever thought of before. The chances are the social object reflects aspects of the self that may never have been able to express itself. Now, these new expressions can now be shared as content with the community, which generates more reaction to it, and that in turn generates more content. Just think of Vines, which are these short 6-second videos that are super hot right now. Technologies emerged that allow videos to be shot and edited on smartphones. And systems have emerged that enable rapid uploading, categorization, storage, and serving of these videos. People can now express themselves in new ways, and communities can form around these new social objects. Now, in the next few slides, I'll talk a bit more about each of these four aspects of social media. First, let's take a look at technology. This cool image here presents the wide spectrum of social media technologies. First, we have blogs and microblogs like WordPress, Blogger, and Twitter. Social networking sites like Facebook, LinkedIn, and MySpace. Collaborative projects like Wikipedia and Basecamp. Content communities like YouTube, Flickr, and SlideShare. Virtual game worlds like World of Warcraft. And virtual social worlds like Second Life and Active Worlds. These last two seem the same, but the distinction is that virtual games are just that. They're games. They're shooting at something or racing a car around a track. You're doing something like that. In virtual social worlds, they involve more of your personality. You can be yourself, or you could even be someone else, interacting with others in a virtual fantasy environment. Well, now let's take a look at the next aspect, the self. Now, people are what social media is all about, and the self is how individuals understand themselves. Of course, this is not a psychology class, but I'll just briefly introduce these inner aspects of people that are so important in understanding how people behave in social media. The self consists of our internal aspects, what we think of ourselves. Then an external aspect, what we think others see us as. And finally, our internal and external aspects are all wrapped up in what we, in where we are in our life stage. So let's take a look at our internal aspects first. Now, our internal self, how we think of ourselves. So to name just a few aspects, there's self-awareness, to understand that we are an individual. Self-concept, our mental model of our abilities and attributes. And our self-image, how we see ourselves, our mental picture. That leads to the next aspect, which is our external self, what we think others see us as, our body, our intelligence, our character, gender, personality, and many more. This aspect is our awareness that people do perceive us in certain ways. And now the last aspect of ourself, our stage of life. Infancy, childhood, adolescence, adulthood, middle age, and finally old age. Our stage in life affects everything. As we move from stage to stage, what is important to us one day is trivial the next. We're now halfway through the four aspects of social media. Our next aspect is the communities we interact with. Now, communities consist of two parts. First, how we relate to the group, and secondly, how the group relates to its members. So for the first part, how we connect to and identify with a community, and also how we influence the group. Here are just a few aspects to be aware of. Social identity, the feelings of self-worth that comes from being a member of a group. Social influence, when our emotions, opinions, or behaviors affect others. And prejudice, discrimination, violence, and aggression, how our negative behaviors affect the group. Now the second part, how the community sees itself and how it acts as a single entity. Here are a few aspects to look out for. The interpersonal relationships, group behavior, and group dynamics, which are all about how people interact in large and small groups. The group norms, which are the unspoken and often unwritten set of informal rules that govern how we behave in a group. Next, let's take a look at the last aspect of social media, social objects. Now, when we take a look at social networks, which are the structures of the different people and organizations in a network, we see that there is no direct connection from person to person. Something is missing, something that connects people together. This is where social objects come in, like this bright red coat that everyone is talking about. Social objects are the stuff we talk about. It's the glue that sticks us together. We see that social networks form around social objects. Now, research has shown that in order to have a strong social media application, you need three things. First, you need social objects that are really easy to understand. You need them to be super clear as to what they are. Like this example here from YouTube. It's really easy to understand what the social object is. It's videos. Now, second, people need to know what they can do with them. You know, a good strong verb. For example, here in YouTube, the like or share a video. Again, they need to be super obvious. Finally, people need to be able to share them easily. On the web, that means permanent URLs, just like I've pointed out here. A permanent URL is critical. People need to be able to share your social objects effortlessly without having to worry that the link may not work. See how easy YouTube makes it for us? You can share directly with all these popular social media sites. If you want to embed the video in a website, they give you the code that you'll need. You can email it directly, or you can see that the URL is already highlighted there for you. So you can just copy and paste it anywhere you choose. Next, let's take a quick look at some popular websites and their social objects. Here you can see in this table, I've laid out some of the most successful social media sites. In the first column are the sites, followed by its social objects. Next, the super clear verbs, and in the last column, I included an image of the button you click to share the social object. Take a look at Facebook at the very top. It has several social objects, posts, messages, events, and more. And you see that post button right there in the last column? You see that these sites have created social objects that are easy to understand, and they've made it crystal clear what you could do with them. So there you have it, the 4 parts of social media that you must consider when creating any social media product, or even adding a small social media widget like a like button. So next, let's take a look at what you need to accomplish to have a strong presence in social media. So how can you be successful? The key to any great application is use. People need to use our applications. Let's talk about user experience. We know that it's critical to user adoption and continued use. So here in a nutshell are the main points of user experience. We know our products must be usable, that our products do what they were designed to do, and that people can quickly learn how to use them with little or no instruction. We know that our products must attract users so we can grab them right off the bat, and then keep them satisfied by providing them with more positive experiences throughout the time they spend with our product. This is all old news. Our products must have a great user experience. But now, there's more. There's been a shift in how we think about creating digital products. Today's products are no longer islands unto themselves. Now products have the ability to reach out to other users. People can now collaborate using our products. We no longer need to just understand individual users. Now we must understand how people interact with one another and our product. Not only must our products have a positive user experience, they must also have a positive social experience. Now, in our next set of slides, we'll talk about some barriers to social media use and how to overcome them. Now, one of the most challenging issues in social media is the 1% rule, also called the 90-9-1 theory. It reflects the idea that most people will not actively participate in a virtual community. These are the lurkers, and they account for 90% of the group. Of the other 10%, only 1% will actually create social objects. Now, this rule is certainly not written in stone, and it does vary with each product, but research has shown that it's basically true. Now, research on early social media applications like Usenet news groups and CompuServe bulletin boards all pointed toward low participation. 1% created content, 9% edited, commented, or interacted with the content in some way. 90%, they just viewed the content. Those were the observers. Now, blogs have even lower participation. 0.1 create content, 5% interact with it, and 95% just lurk. Now, the least participation champ must be Wikipedia. Now, I just pulled these stats. There are 77,000 active contributors. There were more than 7 billion visitors last month. So the ratio is 99.99% to 0.0011%. Now, here's an important side note that applies to all development, not only social. Participation inequality, the 1% rule, affects all areas of user research. We need to keep in mind that 90% of the activity we see is generated by just 1% of our users. So when we look at customer feedback, we're hearing feedback from just about 10% of our users. And we know they will tend to be the most motivated people. So we are hearing or reading the feedback from the least or most satisfied customers who bother to call or post. In product reviews, we tend to see just the extremes, the most glowing or the most critical. And finally, the signal-to-noise ratio in any of the forums we look at. That's when the low-quality postings tend to drown out the few good ones. So you just can't draw conclusions by reviewing the behavior of possibly just 10% of your most active users. Now, this is a major reason why the direct user research we do at Infragistics is so important. Research, such as contextual analysis, usability testing, interviews, and so on, are critical to understanding our users. So what motivates participation? Well, Peter Kollik identified 4 things that motivate people to contribute. Reciprocity. I'll scratch your back with the hopes that you'll scratch mine. I'll participate with the hopes that others will too. There's reputation. When I contribute great stuff, my reputation will also grow. There's this increased sense of efficacy. You know it's the right thing to do. And when I contribute, I'm helping the entire group. And finally, attachment to and need of the group. I have friends in this group, and so I want to contribute. Okay, so let's take a look at some tactics we can use to overcome this terrible lack of participation. Now, according to Jacob Nelson, you can't totally overcome participation inequality. It's human nature. But you can do an end run by encouraging more participation by making it easier for people to contribute. So for example, it's easier for people to just click a star rather than write a whole review. Or you can make participation a side effect. Measure sales records, visits, and so on. You can have users edit, not create content. So you can encourage people to create more content by creating templates that they can just fill out rather than having them start from scratch. Like the way LinkedIn helps users fill out their resumes. You can reward with gifts. For example, if you take a look at Dropbox here, they reward users with free storage by taking a tour of the services, which helps you learn how to use it and hopefully use the service more, or invite friends to join the site. So you get more users to join. You'll also notice that they put limits on how much free storage you can get. They don't over-reward because that would encourage the top users way too much. Finally, you can promote quality contributors, a way to encourage people who may be reluctant to join in. For example, you could use reputation ratings to encourage user participation, and that'll also improve quality ratings, which will cut down on all the signal-to-noise ratio issues. Now let's take a look at another big factor that kills participation, which is a lack of trust. Now, trust in the media is down. According to a survey by Gallup, the distrust in the media has hit a new high in 2012. Or I guess we can say that trust has hit an all-time low. 60% of the people surveyed said that they have little or no trust in the mass media. Distrust is up from the past few years. Americans were already pretty negative about the media in the years before 2004. Now it's even worse. Now, according to a 2013 study by Edelman, trust in business and government are way down. Fewer than 1 in 5 people trust business or government leaders to tell the truth when confronted with a difficult issue. So people don't trust the media, business, or government. Well, who do they trust? Well, family, friends, even strangers. Let's take a quick look at a few studies. This first one is from eMarket. They found that consumer reviews are significantly more trusted, nearly 12 times more than descriptions that come from manufacturers. Harris Interactive found that when people were asked what sources influence your decisions to use or not use a particular company, brand, or product, 71% said that the reviews from family or friends had a great deal or fair amount of influence. Finally, Bazaar Voice found that over half of millennials surveyed, so those are people aged 18 to 34, trust the opinions of strangers online over those of friends and family. Now, that's interesting. Strangers have even more influence. I guess strangers were perceived to have no vested interest at all. So what we're talking about here is the power of good old-fashioned word of mouth. People who are close to us, those that seem to be unbiased, have the most sway over us. Now, with the power of social media, word of mouth has much more reach. Now let's take a look at the research on gaining trust. First, you must demonstrate competence, that you have the knowledge, skills, and abilities to get the job done. So for this slide, let's think of an online 24-hour photo editing application. So the first thing that app must have is it must run and be error-free. It's got to have that ability to run. Secondly, it must do what it says it will. So if this application is billed as having the ability to easily share pictures, then it better be able to do it. While processing photos, it's critical that it won't delete the original files without warning, that it'll do no harm. And lastly, that 24-hour photo sharing app needs to be up all the time. No matter what time of day, it should be available. So all in all, there are 2 key things to eliminating mistrust: authenticity and transparency. Authenticity is how true you are to yourself. And transparency is how clearly you communicate how free you are from legalese or doublespeak. So transparency is how much you share, and authenticity is the truth of what you say and what you do. Many times in social media, this is easier said than done. Let's take a look at some people getting caught doing the wrong thing. Now here, Kenneth Cole, the fashion designer and retailer, had this great idea. During the height of the demonstrations in Egypt, they tweeted, "Millions are in uproar in Cairo. Rumor is they heard our new spring collection is now available online." Ooh, ouch. Or how about this one? Domino's has been receiving so many complaints on their Facebook page that they set up an automatic script to respond to postings with an apology. In this case, someone wrote a good thing, "Best pizza ever." But Domino's auto responds, "So sorry about that." These 2 cases are big authenticity failures. So clearly, these companies need to think a whole lot more before tweeting or responding to posts. And never use an Autobot in social media. Clearly, being authentic and transparent is talking like a person. The easiest way to talk like a person in your site or application is to adopt a more conversational tone. Here you see an error page from the New York Times, and they did everything right. First, error messages should always put the blame squarely on the shoulders of the application and not on the visitor. Second, pose suggestions in the form of inviting questions. Write copy in an inquisitive way so that the site visitors feels compelled to reply with an answer or move forward in the process. So here they do a great job. We're sorry, we seem to have lost this page. So they've taken the blame here totally. But we don't want to lose you. Check out the archive, report a broken link, or hey, take a look down here. You're bound to find something. It's all done in a very conversational tone. So next, I want to introduce to you a terrific source of social media patterns, similar to what I just showed you here, but will really help you get up to speed fast. Now, Crumlish and Malone put together this terrific book of social media GUI patterns. They started at Yahoo with Yahoo's pattern library, and they really expanded on it. The URL for this website is right here. It's designingsocialinterfaces.com. What's a design pattern? Well, you can think of it as a best practice for problem solving. So let's take a quick look at some examples. First, there are three major categories they break down their patterns into. So there's people, there's social objects, and community. Now, this structure should look pretty familiar to you by now. Yes, they use the same social media definitions we started with. So let's take a quick look at these patterns. Now in the self category, they have engagement. In this area, we have registration and sign-in. So as we see here, Windows Live Messenger sign-in and an invitation patterns also. Now there's identity, profiles, identity cards, and so on. Presence, where there is availability and mood. Finally, reputation, where there are levels and award patterns. So let's take a quick look from the book. Okay, here's a typical example. Each pattern includes a what section, which is a short description of what the element is and an example or two of it. Then they have use when. So this is where you should use it, or when you should use it rather. Then there's the how section, how to use it. Why? A rationale for using it. And sometimes they've even included related patterns. So let's take a closer look at the mood pattern. It helps a user communicate how they feel without the need for words. Now, email and text messages are notoriously horrible at communicating how we feel, compared to, of course, in-person dialogue. Now here in this example from Get Satisfaction, these mood icons that I pointed out here helps the user communicate how they feel without the need for words. So this is a simple form that the user fills out to make a comment about an issue in some product or service or something like that. But along with their comment, they can click on one of these mood icons at the bottom to tell people how they're feeling about this issue. So these mood icons are essentially the same as emoticons. You know, those sideways typed happy faces and winks, but now it's been formalized. It's been made so much more easy to communicate feelings, something people are a bit shy to do in words. So by providing these easy-to-use mechanisms, users are set free from writing issues and are reticent to be emotional about things. We want users to be authentic so other users can relate to them and therefore be more willing to participate. So these mood icons really help people emote. So let's take a look at the next section, social objects. So here are the things that social networks form around. The all-important social objects. Now, as you can see in this photo, this football fan has a huge number of social objects around him. So here we have collecting, such as favorites. Publishing, like text creation and workflow, sharing, such as liking, as in Facebook, feedback, like product reviews in Amazon, communicating, such as in Messenger, and collaboration, such as in Wikipedia. Now, wow, this is a huge section filled with great examples. Now let's take a closer look at the favoriting pattern. Now this solves the issue of when a user wants to mark an item, a person, place, or thing, a social object, for essentially their own use. So here are a couple of guidelines on how to use this. First of all, place the favorite link as close to the object as possible. You don't want people to be looking for it. So as you can see in the AOL browser, that heart is right there, right by that article. In Tumblr on the right side, you have that heart, also close to where the action is. And finally, in Twitter, you have it right there in the article. Now, think about allowing the user to add tags, a description of their own or anything else that'll help them find the favorite later. Now, when displaying favorites, and preferably you should have it in its own page, so it's for easy access, of course, make sure users can browse through them and also perform searches by keywords, tags, or other metadata. And finally, one other thing you may want to think about doing is you may want to allow users to share their collections with others. That could be fun too. The last major section remaining is community. Let's take a look. So in the community section, there are personal connections such as finding people, like this example in LinkedIn. Community management, such as collaborative filtering, where users vote up or down interesting articles, like in Reddit. And last, place, such as Yelp's check-ins. So that's my quick review of social media patterns. They are definitely time savers. Now, one last item before we wrap up is how business is changing around social media. Now, the last pattern we'll look at is the find people pattern. Here, the user wants to find people they know to connect to and interact with. Now, use it to help users find people they already know are using the application, as well as people that they do not yet know. Use the pattern to encourage connections after that initial onboarding. So provide a couple of different ways to build their connections. Here in LinkedIn, this is just one way. To help build networks, allow users to browse friends of friends. You may want to think about presenting the user's friends and connections in different ways. A graphical grid, use avatars, could allow others to browse through their profiles. You do all kinds of different visual cues to help someone identify people they may know. You want to help them search for connections. Give them a keyword field, indicate specifically what terms would be okay. Maybe just a name or an email or some other thing like college they went to or high school or place they live, something like that. And having a circle of connections is really, it's really critical to social media. So this is something you really need to concentrate on and make sure you provide it. Now, Fred Cavazza wrote in Forbes in his article entitled "The What and How of Social Business," which I think really describes how social technologies are transforming the way business is getting done today. This diagram that he created helps us understand how business has begun to adopt social into their core processes. At its center, social media and the social intranet coexist. The internal and external processes expand from the center and work together. He then makes the case that Gen Y workers expect more. They grow up with computers, they use social media all the time. We saw that in the research I shared with you earlier, and that they expect to get their work done in a social online way. The internet has always been social, but with more sophisticated users, expectations are even higher. Our software must leverage social media in smarter, more sophisticated ways. Now, for businesses to keep up with the changes in society and the marketplace, they must leverage social media in a more astute way. Let's wrap up by talking about what success looks like in social media. Successful social media will increase sales, will help you hold on to customers, and will increase productivity. There are long timelines. Investments in social media are for the long haul. You must build trust, and you must learn to collaborate with your users. And in the past, we could design applications in isolation. People would accept whatever was produced. There was no easy way to compare offerings, and there was not much competition at that. So those days are gone forever. Today, it's a different world. So how do we get ahead? Well, our ultimate goal is authentic and transparent applications that create honest activity. In our everyday personal world, people speak with each other in a casual way. It's seen as being real. Now, business communications, which are so formal, is seen as being less than truthful and transparent. Research has shown people just don't trust the media, business, or government. So our applications and how it speaks to its users and how it behaves must be more authentic and transparent. Now, as far as increasing use goes, the only way to get people to use our products is for our products to solve the problems people have. User experience and user-centered design is the only way I know that can discover what people need and help create a product that is authentic and transparent. Products that people can get excited about. Social experience is the next advance that we must take into account. So not only must our products do what they are supposed to do in a pleasant way, but they must also consider and enable the social aspects when appropriate. Now, by leveraging social media in your designs, you will empower your users, and in turn, you'll be richly rewarded.